Ready? At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council Audit Committee to order on January 14, 2021 at 12:30, and the machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that all members are present. Mr. Duke is here representing the Audit Committee, and Mr. Epley is here representing his department, administration. This time, we'd like to ask Ms. Marcotte to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all and welcome. This time, we'll move to item number 2.
Review of the Point Lahash Volunteer Fire Department Follow-Up Internal Audit Report.
Okay, what we're going to do this morning or this afternoon is take a look at the follow-up audit of the Point Lahash Volunteer Fire Department public funding. And we'll scroll down to my recommendations, and we'll go through the status of those.
So Duke, make sure you pull that mic to you close.
Okay, let's scroll down on this report. Observation number 1, the agreement between PPG and the Point Lahash Volunteer Fire Department. My recommendation is stated as follows. The agreement as noted in the Parish Resolution number 16147 should have been executed. The agreement should clearly state the responsibilities of each party. The agreement should clearly describe the allowable expenditures that qualify as professional service, equipment, education, and culture. Scroll down to the status. Status of the internal audit recommendations and management response. The CEA is done and is currently waiting for proof of insurance before it can be executed.
Now, this is for what period of time, Mr. Duke?
Oh, this was last year. This is for 3 years. I think it's 17, 18, and 19.
And I guess my point is that this is in the past,
Yes, sir.
and that,
Yeah, all these audits are in the past,
but for instance, for 2021,
right?
I mean, if they go back and sign a CEA for 2020,
Right.
it's useless because there's no funding there any longer to give to the fire department. So this is all after the fact.
This is all after the fact. Every audit is after the fact.
But I just want, for our reference, I want to make sure that we understand that 2020 is history, and that money will not be expended.
Right. It all depends on whether you have an agreement in place or not. Now, if you have another agreement in place for the next year, that's a different story.
Right, but my point is that this agreement was never executed. Those
That's
funds
correct.
have never been
It was never
accessed.
executed. That's correct.
The new budget did not carry those funds forward, from my understanding.
Now, I do think the $25,000 was in the 2020 budget.
Yes, but what I'm saying is I believe that budget has expired, and it's no longer in the 2021 budget. Is that
I
correct?
haven't seen it in the 2021 budget.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is in the 2021 budget. I believe the council voted to put that in the 2021 budget. 25,000 for the Day Van summer recreation program.
So if the administration signs a CEA, it'll be for 2021,
Correct.
and it'll only be for the amount that's in the budget currently.
That's correct.
There'll be no trying to recoup 25 for last year, because it's not there anymore.
Correct.
All right. I just want to get a good understanding, because this has been dragging along for a long time.
I did speak with
Let's talk to the mic, Mr. Mike.
I spoke with Mr. Brox yesterday, And he stated that no matter what, he doesn't have the money in his account to reimburse the parish anyway.
Okay, let's keep going. We'll get to that.
Okay. Observation number 2, public funding, separate interest-bearing bank account. My recommendation was entities that receive public funding should deposit public funds into a separate interest-bearing bank account. The status of this is, management status is that PPG has no control over volunteer fire department finances. They are a separate corporation.
Correct. Now, this is where I'd like to interject that in any CEA that is executed in this manner in the future, the CEA dictate a separate account be held in a separate interest-bearing account. That way, no matter whether they're a public entity that we have control over or not, the CEA will dictate those recommendations from the Audit Committee and Mr. Duke. So I would hope that the administration would take heed of that and include that in any future CEAs to be able to get more control over those funds for an easier access to audit.
That's correct. CEAs and anything like a CEA should have a separate interest-bearing bank account, including like the YMCA, for instance. You really need, in order to be able to track your funds, you need not have those funds commingled with other disbursements of the entity, because they lose their identity if you do so.
And my point of bringing this up now is that if we align that into the CEA,
Right.
the administration puts that in there, it becomes a requirement of accessing the funds, and we will not have to get responses like we don't have control over
That's
that
correct.
department.
That is correct, yes.
Mr. Roussel, do you think we need to get a resolution on ordinance saying that in future, in CEAs in the future, that a separate account has to be?
We could easily pass the policy through this board and through the council as a whole if we'd like. If you'd like to do that, I'd be glad to support that. I think that for us, to be able to tighten up on our side of the equation,
That's correct.
things like that would be good.
I think that would be a good idea also, so that's why I recommended it.
Good, Ms. Newberry. Maybe the council secretary can make a note and prepare something for us to adopt a policy that would include that language. We do have a policy that we've already started with the language that we put in for auditing. We might want to amend that policy and put just section in that ordinance that allows us to do audits, also allows the CEAs, if it fits. I'd have to go back and look at the ordinance.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Newberry.
think that's a good step forward. Observation number 3, Point Allahash Volunteer Fire Department operations. My recommendation was the public funds left over each year should be either paid back to the parish or used to reduce the amount of public funding received during the year. The status: the Director of Public Service sent the following email to the Point Allahass Volunteer Fire Department on January 28, 2020, asking for the excess funds to be returned, but has not received a response to date.
So,
The email states, Chief Brox, I am requesting that the public grant funds left over from prior years be returned to Plaquemines Parish government as suggested by the internal auditor. According to the auditor's findings, that amount should be approximately $25,000 per year. Please let me know when Plaquemines Parish government can expect this money to be returned.
and this takes it to the next step as well, that the CEA should reference this, that all funds are to be returned at the end of the year. It doesn't mean that they will go out I mean, not go out and spend it all before the end of the year, but it'll eliminate the fact that they can accumulate funds and go and purchase large items like we're dealing with, train, et cetera. So that was an accumulation of funds over years. If the CEA dictates that we are providing funding for an operational expense for that period of time, the CEA should also be detailed enough to say you return what's left at the end of the year. And the only thing I'm doing is by following this audit and the recommendations, asking the administration to incorporate those recommendations into the CEA so we don't have this ever happen to us again.
Right. That is,
Yeah, can I respond to that? That's
Ms. Newberry.
the way to put that, Mr. Roussel. I know that big companies, when you dealing with public money on type of grant given to large businesses and industries and, government, when money's given to us and you don't use it, then it should be returned or you get less the following year.
That is
So
correct.
sometimes it's handled that way also. So if the money's not used, it's something that we can look, if they've only used 15, then they only get, the difference, you deduct the difference the following year. So it's a
yes,
great,
ma'am. I think the
great
procedure.
policy.
I think the procedure from my past is that any unused public funding during the year should go back to the general fund. I think that's a statute or a state law.
Well, let's follow through with that and make sure that it becomes part of our law,
Okay.
if not somewhere else. But I guess it seems to me that we are not giving grants normally to buy capital items. We're normally giving grants for services that, meet the test of the Cabela to be able to say we're getting a benefit for the grant that we give. So if we stay in that vein, then we'll be able to put strings attached, so to speak, to those funds through the CEA. So, all
Right.
good points.
Yeah, it's very easy to lose track of your public funding in certain situations and not really know whether or not that those funds have actually been accounted for.
Yes.
So as many controls as we can have over those public funds, I believe in overdoing it if possible. Put as many controls in place as you can.
Okay. This is a good learning experience for us to create some good policy.
Yes, sir.
We'll move on.
Observation number 4. Internal controls over expenditures of public funds. My recommendation: ensure that proper internal controls are in place, due diligence and care over expenditures of public funding. The status is that the PPG has no control over the volunteer fire department's finances, and they are a separate corporation. And, I know we've had this status report on several of these findings, but Mr. Epley is correct that the reason that this was a difficult audit in the first place was that we did have lack of control over looking at their finances, except for that $50,000 which we gave them. Okay, that concludes the observations, follow-up observations for Point Allahash Volunteer Fire Department.
Okay, anyone want to make any comments on the follow-up? I think we made some during the discussion. And from the discussion, I hope that we can come forward with some more policy regulations to be able to tighten up any grants in the future.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any further comments on this item? Mr. Epley? None? All right, Mr. Duke, we thank you for that. We'll move on. Next item.
Number 3, audits in progress. A, review and discussion of the annual audit work plan for 2021.
Okay, the review of the annual audit work plan, I'd like to show the committee, what we did. This is, the screen is showing what is on the Plaquemine Parish Government website under Internal Audit. And of course, I have the schedule of audit priorities. All of this was approved with the port contracts, 15 entities that we want to audit during this year. I prepared it, has my signature on it. Mr. Roussel did review it, and we're still waiting on Mr. Lapine, the parish president, to sign this. I'm going to try to get with him again next week and see if we can have a meeting set up where I can get him to sign it. And once I have his signature, I'm going to replace this on their website with all 3 signatures. Let me just say that it's very important to have management's buy-in on all the audits that we propose doing for every single year. That gives cooperation between the audit committee, me, and management. So it's very, very crucial that everybody is involved in this and everybody is buying into the process.
And how long have you been waiting on that signature?
Yes, I first contacted him back in November, I believe.
Well, now that the holidays are over, I would hope that he could address this so we can adopt this.
Yes, sir. I am too. I'm going to try to reach him again next week and see if we can set up a meeting like we did last year in 2020. I met with him in January, and it was a very good meeting. And we sat down and discussed each one of the items we were going to do in 2020. So I'm hoping that we can do the same thing. And I'll follow up on this during our next committee meeting in February.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or discussion on this item, members? Now we'll move to the next item.
3B, status of the Community Action Internal Audit.
Okay, this audit is ongoing. I've got a lot of it done already. I have a few questions about some of the contracts, so as soon as I get those questions answered, this report will go out.
You have an idea when that might be completed?
I'm going to try to have it done for the February meeting. All right, it'll probably, hopefully go out before February meeting, which I think is February 12th, I believe. Or 11th, February 11th, I think it is.
Okay. Any questions or comments on item B? Hearing none, move to the next item.
C, status of these follow-up internal audits.
Okay, these audits are still ongoing. The port contracts, I sent that out to the port. I haven't received any responses yet. PPG contract, no responses yet. The water department, I received the responses and sent that out yesterday, I believe, or the day before. Time and attendance, no response yet. PPG lease property in boat harbors, no response yet. Recreation department was sent to me. I sent that to the audit committee on the same day, I think either yesterday or the day before. YMCA, I haven't received anything on that yet. So as soon as these come in, we will I will send them out and we'll address them during the next audit committee meeting. Water department and the recreation department will definitely be ready for the February meeting.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion on any of these items? The board, audience? None? Mr. Duke, that completes your report on item C. That's it?
That's it, yep.
All right, move to item 4.
Approval of the minutes from the November 12, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the November 12, 2020 meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Konovich, is there a second? Second by Ms. Newberry. Any comments or discussion on the adoption of the November 12, 2020 meeting minutes? Hearing none, machine is open. Let the record reflect that the minutes are adopted unanimously 3-0. No further business come before the committee today. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Konovich, second by Ms. Newberry. Machine is open. And the meeting is adjourned at 12:50.